There are moments in our lives when a reality that we hadn't noticed before becomes impossible to ignore. Collectively, we're on the verge of one of those moments, one that has the potential to deepen our understanding of elephants and reshape our own ideas of healing. Today, I'd like you to step into this reality with me, to open your heart and your mind as we go on a journey together with the elephants, where their lives and their stories of healing offer subtle insights into our own. Deep in the Cerrado of Mato Grosso in central Brazil, something incredible is happening. There, in the 2,800-acre wild and protected habitat, we're witnessing the profound impact that sanctuary has on elephants who have spent their lives in captivity. Throughout our history, we've revered elephants for their intelligence and their strength and their beautiful family bonds. But what we admired, we've tarnished through control. We tore young elephants away from their mothers, we reduced their intelligence to metaphor, and we turned their strength and their beauty into spectacle. And in holding them captive under the guise of education and entertainment, we have stripped them of nearly everything that makes them elephants. And what remains are self-aware beings, forced to adapt in unnatural ways just to protect themselves from us. But something in them endures, something that's waiting to be recognized. And all across the world, people are beginning to wake up to the suffering of elephants in captivity. Countries are starting to ban performing elephants, and zoos in South America are choosing to voluntarily relocate their elephants to sanctuary, not because of public pressure, but because of growing awareness. Within the safety, space, and intention of Elephant Sanctuary Brazil, we are witnessing elephants healing from the mental, physical, and emotional traumas that they've endured. And as they rediscover what it means to be an elephant, and we watch them return home to themselves, they reveal to us something essential about the nature of healing and what it means to belong. I would like to introduce you today to a few incredible individuals whose lives have been transformed by Sanctuary. Meet Maya and Gita. Long before Sanctuary, they lived side by side in the same circus, but the way that they coped with the abuse and neglect could not have been more different. Maya fought and resisted, and she was often physically punished for it. Gita retreated inward, and although she was still dominated, she was often rewarded in front of Maya for her more submissive demeanor. Both elephants were shaped by the same traumatic world, but their adaptations fractured their relationship with one another, and it became hostile. After they were confiscated from the circus, they were sent to live at a small private roadside farm, completely unequipped to meet their most basic needs. The chains tied around their ankles were kept deliberately short, just long enough for them to take a few steps in either direction, and short enough to avoid Maya from becoming physically aggressive with Gita as she had in the past. This wasn't the first time that space had been used to control them, but this was extreme. When the sanctuary's rescue team arrived, they had to work very carefully, not just to manage the logistics, but to navigate the dysfunctional dynamic between them. Eventually, both elephants made their way into their transport crates, and their journey to Elephant Sanctuary Brazil began. They would be the first elephants ever welcomed at this new sanctuary. It was an incredible place, vast and wild and built with really clear intention, not just to provide space and care, but to restore autonomy, to create the conditions for each elephant to rediscover who they are. Between the two sanctuary co-founders, Scott and Kat Blaze, they had decades of rescue experience, but they had never seen anything like what happened the night that Maya and Gita arrived at Sanctuary. Both elephants stepped out of their separate transport crates into the Elephant Care Center with a fence in between them for safety. Maya reached out to try to touch Gita, and Gita pulled back, and she kept her distance for hours. But when the sun went down and everything got still, something shifted. They started rumbling and trumpeting, communicating. And then they approached each other at the fence, gently leaned face to face, and started touching trunks. That night, something clearly was resolved because in the morning, they were standing there with their bodies pressed fully against each other at the fence, connected. In the safety of Sanctuary, a special friendship formed, one that wasn't based on shared survival, but on the freedom to start over again, this time true to themselves. Their healing began in connection. For others, like Hana, the journey would begin alone. Hana worked in over 600 cities in the 40 years that she was forced to perform as a circus elephant. Then she disappeared from public record and showed up again later at a small hotel zoo on the coast of Brazil. For 7 years, she lived in a tiny barren yard surrounded by hot wire with a dilapidated shelter that really was no shelter at all. The years of isolation and neglect had quieted her voice, but there was still a light inside of her. And when the rescue team arrived to bring Hana home to Sanctuary, Hana was ready. By the time that she arrived, Maya and Gita were already healing and adjusting in partnership. And when Hana met them, it was with this big, huge enthusiasm and overly eager energy, and it was too much. Hana would hover, and she would insert herself between them. And after a few days, Maya and Gita made it very clear that they needed a little bit of time away from her. Hana's feelings were visibly hurt, but she listened, and she stepped back, and she took space. Those early interactions were hard for her, but they were really important because they helped her to attune. She began to sense what others were feeling and what they needed and how to show up without losing herself. She learned to live fully in the now, and she expected others to meet her there. Even with her caregivers, when they showed up to give her treatment, she would only allow it if they were present. She wasn't demanding. She simply refused to be unseen. When other elephants were rescued and brought to Sanctuary, Hana was the first to welcome them and to help them adjust. She became, over time, a master of relationship. And to this day, she continues to hold a safe and steady space for the others. This is Hana's unique gift, and it never would have had the chance to emerge without the opportunity for companionship. While some elephants arrive at Sanctuary yearning for connection, others arrive fiercely independent, shaped by what they've endured and clear about what they need. Like Lady. Lady lived for over 40 years in a circus before being confiscated and sent to a zoo, where she continued to be denied her most essential needs: space, companionship, choice. After decades confined to surfaces that ravaged her soft feet, and years of standing in her own excrement, Lady developed a chronic foot condition, one that's unfortunately very common in zoos and often ends the lives of captive elephants. She carried pressure sores and joint issues and a long history of neglect. And after all that she had been through, she had a deep distrust for humans. When Lady arrived at Sanctuary, Hana was right there to welcome her. Lady was open, but she was also cautious, and she kept at least 20 feet between them at all times, and that never ever changed. The distance wasn't a barrier, it was simply an expression of Lady's needs, which no one had listened to in decades. But Hana listened. She respected Lady's wishes, and a friendship formed. Lady was spunky, and she was playful, and she was really, really charming, and she preferred her space and solitude. And we honored that by giving her access to vast private yards where she could move at her own pace and explore by herself in a space that she chose. And despite her independence, she was still connected. When the others would rumble and play, she would respond with a trumpet from across the habitat. She didn't need closeness to belong. She simply needed the freedom to be herself. She found joy in the stream and in the rain and in the mud wallow and with the hose, anything with water. She explored deep into the furthest reaches of the habitat, crossing valleys and hills that seemed impossible given the condition of her feet, which needed a lot of attention. And when her caregivers met her with patience, and when they were emotionally present, she would let them in and show them the pain that she carried. In those moments of trust, she taught us how to let go of our expectations and honor what's been endured. Lady's journey challenges the idea that healing is supposed to look a specific way. In fact, it shows us that healing actually requires something more radical: a life shaped by choice, by the freedom to decide when to rest and where to roam and how to be, and by the safety to exist as fully and freely as yourself. Her story is a beautiful demonstration of what true sanctuary offers to captive elephants. It's not just land and care for physical wounds, although it is that too, but more essentially, it's a culture of respect, of deep listening, of autonomy, a bold departure from the systems of control that they've survived. At Sanctuary, we don't always witness healing in the ways that we expect, but we always witness emergence. A return of each elephant to their own natural rhythms and their own unique way of being. These stories are reshaping how we think of elephants in captivity and our understanding of our role in their healing, and maybe even in our own. They ask us to impose less, to listen more, to use our voices and our gifts and our resources to restore what's been lost and protect what still remains. You and I are here now with the elephants. What we choose next in thought, in action, and in relationship will shape not only their future, but our own. Thank you.